What if there existed an ideal population which has attained a complete genetic equilibrium? Different alleles of a gene have different frequency of occurrence in a given population. In this hypothetical ideal population, the frequency of occurrence of different alleles of a given gene remains constant over time. In other words, there exists a perfect genetic equilibrium. This sort of a condition is known as Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium. G. H. Hardy and Wilhelm Weinberg independently described this principle in 1908. But in reality, such situation is seldom seen, as there are several forces acting on a population which alter its genetic pool. These forces are responsible for evolution of species. Examples of such forces are mutation, natural selection, selective mating, migration of population, etc. In other words, Hardy-Weinberg principle states that in a large population, if there are no evolutionary forces acting on it, the frequency of alleles and genotype remains constant. An equation can be derived based on this principle. This equation can then be used to estimate the frequency of silent carriers of a particular allele. This is important, especially if this allele produces any genetic disorder. In that case, if we know the incidence rate of such a disease, the carrier rate can be calculated based on Hardy-Weinberg principle. Also, it can be easily seen that in the case of a genetic disorder, using Hardy-Weinberg principle, it is easy to estimate the mutation rate in the responsible gene. This is possible as we can estimate the total frequency of the allele using the Hardy-Weinberg equation, and any deviance from that equation could be because of a possible mutation. A broad idea of possible mutation rate has crucial consequences upon the treatment of a genetic disorder. Non-random mating disturbs the equilibrium by favoring certain characteristics such as height, skin color that give individuals an advantage in finding sexual partners. A mutation will obviously disturb the equilibrium, as we can easily understand why. In case of a small population, this equilibrium often gets disturbed, as any random statistical fluctuation will produce a dramatic shift in the frequency of the alleles. Migratory influx or outflux in a population may change the genetic pool of a population, and thus it disturbs the equilibrium. And lastly, natural selection will disturb the Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium by its very nature of favoring the alleles which have better value for survival.